Hello friends. In today's story, Sangu is a lonely poor screenwriter. Unemployed, friendless, and his parents are dead. However, his main problem is that he hasn't been able to sleep for more than half a year, because every time he tries, a demon appears in his dreams and turns everything into violent nightmares. Tonight, Sangu is dreaming that he's on the subway when the demon arrives, grabs him by the hair, and after making a hole in the floor, shoves his head in it, killing him. He wakes up right after dying in the dream and decides to try writing something. But the landlord knocks on the door, saying he brought him food. Sangu escapes through the window because he has no money to pay the rent. As he walks through the streets, he remembers all the specialists he visited to understand the problem with his dreams. Psychologists, doctors, scientists, religious figures, and others. They all had different theories about dreams and what they could mean, but nothing concrete that could help him. He stops at a food stall and orders a crepe without an egg because it's all he can afford. But the vendor gives him an egg for free as a courtesy. While he waits for the crepe to be ready, he watches the cafe across the street where the girl he has a crush on works. He met her years ago when he was at a bar with friends, and she was there playing with her band. Her voice was beautiful, and he has thought of her ever since. When the crepe is ready, Sangu sits down to eat but is surprised by Sun, his manager. Sangu runs off and drops the crepe along the way, but he is too weak to get far. Sun catches up to him and takes him to a restaurant, where he forces Sangu to watch him eat while scolding him for not fulfilling the contract and not delivering the script on time. Sangu tries to explain that his insomnia doesn't let him concentrate or write, but Sun doesn't listen and demands the script be ready in 10 days. After that, Sangu returns to his apartment and discovers it's locked with all his belongings in the hallway. The landlord has finally evicted him. He goes to a cafe to try to write there, but he's too hungry to think and ends up falling asleep. The demon appears again, puts chains on his neck, and starts slamming Sangu's head against the table. Once again, he wakes up in the morning right after dying in the dream and discovers that his laptop has been stolen. Without his work tool and starting to confuse nightmares with reality, Sangu sends a message to Sun saying he is going to commit suicide to join his parents. He chooses the roof of the building across from the cafe and watches Ruer as he climbs to the edge. Ready to jump, but the crepe vendor interrupts him, offering him free food. The man climbs onto the roof and while Sangu eats, talks to him about the different views people have on death and dreams. He comes to a simple conclusion. When Sangu has those nightmares, he should tell himself, "I'm dreaming," to get out of them faster. Sangu stays on the roof watching Ruer until nightfall. Then he sells his cell phone to get some money and buy food. He goes to a convenience store where he considers stealing some things but changes his mind when he realizes he's being watched. He eats what he bought outside the store and gets a scare when Ruer suddenly appears, showing concern for him. This seems too good to be true, and soon Sangu discovers that Ruer is actually the demon. The demon starts pushing him against the glass so the store employee can see him. This looks like a panic attack. The demon grabs Sangu and, while stabbing him with its sword, throws him through the window. Sangu grabs the sword, remembers the crepe vendor's advice, and tells himself, "I'm dreaming," which allows him to wake up in mid-fall. In real life, he's also flying through the broken glass, but although he is not stabbed, he mysteriously finds the demon's sword in his hands. He flees before the ambulance called by the employee arrives and spends the night in the park examining the sword and making sure he isn't dreaming again. In the morning, he goes to the flea market to sell it, but the buyer's excitement makes him realize he has something valuable in his hands. So he decides to go to a pawn shop where he receives the sword's real value, 20,000. Sangu wastes no time and starts spending. He buys a new computer, eats at a fancy restaurant, and stays in a luxury hotel. When night falls, he takes sleeping pills and waits for the usual dream to begin. The dream also takes place in the hotel, so he leaves the room and explores the hallway. He picks up a vase and says, "I'm dreaming," but nothing happens. He decides to explore a bit more. It's at that moment that the demon appears, chasing him with a giant golden axe. The demon strikes him with the weapon, causing several injuries. But after a few blows, Sangu manages to take the axe and says, "I'm dreaming." Once again, he wakes up with the weapon in his hands and without any injuries. It is sold at the same pawn shop, and the money is immediately spent again. Sangu buys stylish clothes, a new car, and spends the night drinking with some women at a bar. When he returns to the hotel room, he doesn't let them come in with him. He just gives them money for a taxi before going to sleep. This time he tries a new trick. He looks at photos of a major museum in a book before falling asleep. And the trick works because the dream takes place in the exact location from the photos. Sangu observes the surroundings, admiring all the antiques, before sitting down to wait for the demon to arrive. This time, the demon appears with a firearm, which ruins Sangu's plan. He starts running and dodging the shots, but eventually the demon catches and kills him. Sangu wakes up in the hotel room, but since he failed to get anything from the dream, he takes another sleeping pill. Back in the dream, Sangu starts running again, and after dodging some shots with an incredible leap, he manages to grab 2 antiques before waking up. This time, he takes the treasures to professional antique dealers, who pay him 2 million for them. He faces some questions about his methods, but fortunately manages to evade them all. Upon leaving the shop, he is approached by an irritated son who thought he was dead. Son invites him to dinner at a fancy restaurant and returns the money he had received for the script, saying he no longer writes. The next day, Sangu finally enters Ruer's cafe, and after ordering a latte, asks if she recognizes him, but she doesn't. Later that night, Sangu gets drunk during dinner with Sun, who wants to know the secret to his success. Sun takes Sangu back to the hotel room and after putting him to bed, pretends to leave. He gets a scare when Sangu wakes up holding golden chains in his hands. Now that he knows the secret, Sun begs him to make him his partner in this new business. The next day, Sangu buys Ruer's cafe and tells her he still wants her to manage it. They can split the profits, but he will cover the losses. To show her gratitude, Ruer invites him to dinner. During dinner, they talk about the new business, and Ruer expresses her suspicion that Sangu wants more than just money from this deal. From then on, Sangu starts having dream adventures regularly while Sun protects his body as he sleeps. Some of the dreams include, for example, robbing a bank where Sangu demonstrates how much he is. Learning to control his powers. He starts fighting the demon and manages to move objects with his mind. He also begins to bring back larger objects like a red car. Sometime later, Ruer's cafe is full of customers because Sangu sent Sun to pay people on the streets to go there. He also leaves a bag of money for the crepe vendor as a thank you for the times he gave him free food. After the cafe closes, Sangu goes for a walk with Ruer, who with a few words, guesses that he is a screenwriter. Sangu starts walking her home every day after work. And one night, he lets her drive the red car he brought from the dream, telling her the car is hers. This luck makes her assume he is a very famous screenwriter. As she drives at night, Sangu remembers the day he met her. After her concert, he saw her crying after a fight with her ex. After that, he followed her to the movies several times. Sangu decides to take her to the movies in the present, and Ruer accepts. But this leads her to wonder when they will see a movie written by him. Not wanting to get caught in his lie, Sangu writes a real script and gives it to Sun to read while he dreams. As Ruer is always on his mind, Sangu dreams that he is in bed with several copies of her, which makes him wake up quickly. When he wakes up, he finds Sun crying over how incredible the script is. Their plan begins to take shape. They sell the script to a film production company, offering their own money to hire the biggest stars and create a huge hit. They even organize a special dinner event to celebrate. Sangu brings Ruer as his date. There's even a special presentation about his career, completely fabricated, claiming he has written many successful films but never wanted credit because he preferred to travel and see the world. A few days later, during a dream, Sangu discovers something very peculiar, the body of a meditating monk. When he tries to take the monk's belt, his hand disintegrates. He doesn't give up, and when his hand regenerates, he tries again. Upon removing the belt, the monk moves to touch his chest with 2 smoking fingers, but Sangu doesn't seem very concerned. The usual demon doesn't appear, and both the treasure and the monk disintegrate. One night, Sangu takes Ruer to the rooftop where he almost committed suicide and shows her a fireworks display prepared especially for her. When she asks if he will disappear as suddenly as he appeared, he promises he will never leave her. Afterwards, they go to her apartment, and while Ruer freshens up in the bathroom, Sangu rehearses a possible confession. However, he realizes he needs to leave because something suddenly hits him in the chest. When he looks in the mirror, he sees 2 smoking black marks on his skin. Upon arriving home, he ignores the party Sun is throwing with several women and goes straight to bed. Sun prepares to collect the night's treasure, but Sangu tells him it won't be necessary. This time he will sleep alone. In his dreams, he finds himself in a tall, empty building where a mysterious figure waits for him on the balcony. Sangu approaches and discovers it's an older version of himself, which is now disintegrating. When he wakes up, he finds a new scar on his shoulder, and as the hours pass, other scars appear in the places where the demon had injured him in previous dreams. The next morning, he goes to find the crepe vendor to ask for more advice. But just as he is about to reach his destination, a van pulls up beside him and kidnaps him. When the bag is finally taken off his head, Sangu realizes he is in an abandoned building surrounded by a gang of criminals led by Kong. Sangu says he will pay whatever they ask, and after agreeing on 10 million, he calls Sun to bring the money. When Sun arrives, Kang's men take the money, and also take Sun, whom Kong uses as a hostage to negotiate. With no other option, Sangu takes the whole group to his apartment along with an unconscious Sun and shows them the secret room where he keeps his antiques. Meanwhile, Kong tries to make Sangu confess how he got those rare items. Someone arrives at the building to see him, Ruer. The receptionist informs him of her arrival over the intercom, and Sangu breaks up with Ruer at that moment so she will leave and be safe. Seeing how upset she is, the receptionist mentions that, for some reason, the door to Sangu's apartment is still open and lets her go up. As soon as Ruer gets out of the elevator, one of the thugs captures her and takes her to the same place where Sangu is being held. Kong starts provoking her, trying to destabilize her by saying Sangu is lying to her. This causes discontent in another thug who believed they were only there for the money. As punishment for his indiscretion, Kong puts on golden brass knuckles and beats the man, while Sun secretly starts to wake up. When Kong turns toward Ruer, she kicks him to defend herself, and Sun takes the opportunity to attack the man holding him with a vase. Sangu bites the thug holding him and manages to escape, but not before being stabbed. The 3 of them flee while Kong shoots the thug he beat, but Sangu can barely walk due to his injuries. The men catch up with them on the stairs, and one of them manages to stab Sangu again. Sun sacrifices himself by staying behind and distracting the thugs while Sangu and Ruer escape. A normal man can't face 2 trained men, and Sun is beaten to death. One of the thugs manages to capture Sangu and Ruer on the next floor, beating them both and throwing them from side to side. Regardless of Sangu stabbing him in the back with a dagger, both end up passing out. Sangu suddenly finds himself in mysterious ruins covered by a black substance that disappears when he starts to move. After exploring the place, he touches a glowing door arch and begins to see scenes from his life over the past few months, including both real life and dreams, and even a version of himself being taken away in an ambulance on the night of the convenience store incident. When the vision ends, he walks to an area with a giant glass wall and starts hitting it while repeating, "I'm dreaming," several times until he faints from blood loss. Suddenly, his body begins to transform, and Sangu realizes he is turning into the demon. With a machete appearing in his hand, he starts to smash the glass wall. When the wall finally breaks, the demon appears in Sun's living room, where his body is also waking up. The demon kills all the thugs without hesitation, even making its strange firearm appear when needed. Afterwards, it goes after Sangu, ready to kill him too. But Sangu murmurs, "I'm dreaming," and all the antiques he brought from the dreams begin to disappear, both in his apartment and in the collections of the wealthy. Sangu faints again. When he wakes up, he finds himself back on the night in front of the convenience store. Ruer finds him, recognizes him from her concert, and feeling sorry for him, takes him to her home to give him real food. While he eats a noodle soup, she mentions that she read a story of his in a magazine and found it very good, though she thinks he needs a bit of luck to succeed. In the meantime, she offers him a job at her cafe, which makes Sangu break down and start crying. It's revealed that all this time, Ruer always knew he was watching her. Sometime later, while they are working at the cafe, Ruer gives Sangu a gift, a new laptop so he can write. Later, Sangu meets Sun at a restaurant to give him back the money, saying he can't write on commission and only wants to write what he truly desires. Sun not only refuses the money but gives even more back to Sangu because he managed to sell one of his old scripts. To celebrate, this time Sangu pays the bill. Many days later, now satisfied with his life, Sangu goes to the crepe vendor to order food. The man takes the opportunity to return his money and shows him a scar on his stomach, saying that he too had the same power, and learned that a humble life is better. As Sangu listens to the story, the ruins from the last dream appear behind him, revealing that the new demon that killed the thugs has been following him ever since he reappeared at the convenience store. If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.